students, welcome to the NPTEL online course, and in this module today we'll start with design semiotics and visual perception. In the initial module we will start discussing design semiotics. So what is semiotics? Semiotics is a theory of science. In many digital media design, for example web design and software applications, we need to understand the sign and its meaning. Sign does not mean that it has to be an icon or some pictograms. It can be a meaning of a picture, how it interprets and how user with their social and cultural background, how they interpret the meaning. So today we'll start discussing that. So we'll just brief the what we'll touch within semiotics, because it's a complete domain. We'll not go deep into this. So we'll just discuss the theory of semiotics, and then what are the divisions of semiotics are syntax, semantics and pragmatics, and we'll again go deep into the syntax. What are the divisions of syntax, how the syntax or the formation of a meaning happen, or the structure of the meaning happen, and then semantics, what is the meaning and how it has been interpreted, and the pragmatics, what is the functional part of the sign, what is the communication happening within the user and the signages, that we'll discuss. So to start with, semiotics is a learning and various ways that designers can empower meaning and motivation by the visual choices. For example, we can take the example of a website. There with the words, there also will be logos. For example, here you can see the home button. We all know that this is a home button of a website. Otherwise, if some people doesn't know, if not associated with the web application or have not seen, might not be interpreting this as a home page of a website, because this shows as a just as a icon of a home. Even the second icon, what we can see is denotes settings. But this has nothing to do with settings, because this is just some gears associated with that, because we are preconceived and we have that preconceived idea of this will denote settings, so that we know. So how people interpret these images and how what kind of communication happens within this icons and users' mind, that comes under semiotic analysis and semiology. So we can say that semiotics is a science of science, and it is the science of it is also the science behind the graphic design. So in design, semiotics is the study of communication through signs and symbols and their uses and interpretation and the meaning. So here we can see that it can be depicted through a word. For example, in the first in the diagram, you can see there's a first here, it's written tree. So that also when we read the word, if somebody knows the language in which it is written, so that a visual image of a tree comes into people's mind. And similarly, if we see a pictogram or icon or a realistic picture of a tree, but which is a picture, not a 2D picture or painting or photograph, then also a tree's identity, a tree's conception, or the mental model of a tree will come into user's mind. So this is the initial idea of semiotics. We'll go deep into this. So for example, FedEx logo, we can take that. FedEx logo, it's a typographic logo, it's just written FedEx, but there is a interesting visual graphics into it. So if we see carefully, there's a arrow symbol coming out with a figure ground relationship. So arrow symbol means that it's something to do with movement and something to do with delivery. So that is the concept of the FedEx, and this comes into user's mind, and if somebody is associated with that and gives the brand identity of a FedEx. And it can also be very universal. For example, danger, the sign of danger. Generally we see that it's depicted with red, which is the color of danger, which is associated with the word danger, and even we see that the skull and the bones, which also evokes a sensation of fear. So if we go back to the historic backdrop, so it starts. The semiotics is started with a very ancient time. We can trace back to the Plato's time, but Ferdinand de Saussure is the father of the modern semiotics idea, and the he developed the concept of semiotics in the contemporary idea of semiotics. So. And if we think about semiotics, it's not just the meaning. It can be, it can go beyond the meaning, and it can have a sense. It can touch to our senses, like it can be a visual sensation. It can be a sound, touch, or smell, or taste. So all these things comes into semiotics, and after that. We have Charles Peirce, Charles Saunders Peirce, who also takes that semiotics meaning into the socio-cultural context. So before that, it was like what we are seeing and what is the interpretation. And the Charles Peirce said that it's also how we read it. So similar thing, similar word can mean differently, can communicate differently with the variation of socio-cultural aspects. And also, if you are more interested about semiotics, there are Levi-Strauss and Levi-Strauss theory and Jacques Derrida. You can read their theories if you want to go deep into the subject. So first we discuss the theory of Saussure's. So what he says, he connotes two important terminology. One is the signifier, and one is the signified. So the way he defines signifier is which is the material, the thing that that signifies. For example, the word in the previous slide we discussed the word tree, as well as the photograph or the icons of tree, which signifies. So that is not the exact thing what comes into people's or users' mind. If we think about the mental image of what users think, so it is just a word. You have to see the word, or you can see the image. After that, based on your previous knowledge, something comes into your mind. That is a signified. So here the signified is actually the real tree, and signified is the word or image or pictogram, whatever what triggers your memory. So for example, with an example of this, we can understand this more. So sign has two parts. One is the signified and signifier. Here we are taking an example of a flower. This is a Van Gogh's painting. So flower, the word flower is actually the signifier, which signifies. And if you read the word flower or see a icon of a flower or a real photograph of a flower, something comes into your mind. That is the image of the real existence of that flower, what you have seen before. So next we come to the Peirce's theory. So Peirce added one third element, that is interpretant. So interpretant is not the user, but the way the user's mind acts. So it is a function of their socio-cultural aspects. So if somebody is has a preconceived idea about what it is, then he can interpret it in a different way. For example, if somebody is more associated with the if we take the word flower, if somebody has more association with some particular kind of flower, for example sunflower, he can think about a sunflower. When he reads the word flower, he can think about a particular kind of flower which has a strong memory in his mind. Or example, if somebody has a strong memory of some other kind of flower, for example rose, he can think about rose. But that depends on its on the user's preconceived idea and the past history, how he is associated with that. So there is a socio-cultural concept associated with the meaning. So for example, in some cultural aspect, if we take the word sorrow, in some socio-cultural context, it can be depicted with white, and in some sociocultural context it can be even depicted by black. So whether a black color represents sorrow or the white color represents sorrow depends on the on somebody's sociocultural context and somebody's own thinking. So there is a triangle. So one is the object, which is the signifier. So that is the real object, and the representation, that is the signified, the how it has been represented. It can be a photograph, it can be an icon, it can be just a word, and interpreted how people are reading the sign based on their socio-cultural context and based on their past memory. So we can take different examples. For example, we can have a real photograph of something, and for example, champagne. It can so that is the real object of a glass of wine that represents this champagne or wine. And somebody can think about wine as a celebration. Somebody can think about wine as a ceremony, and wine as a happy hour. It depends on somebody's association with the image. Even it can a photograph of a Labrador can be for somebody it's just a Labrador, and for somebody who has a pet can be it can be a family pet, and it depends on how people look at to the image. Similarly, the stop sign, it doesn't depend on what kind of language, in which language it is written. So the red bold color for somebody, it directly gives you an sensation of that has to be a stop sign. And also for somebody there the word triggers. For example, the stop sign is written in different languages. So somebody reads that and understands that's a stop sign. For example, if in the first slide we were giving the example of home button. So imagine a website which has a home button, which has the home icon, and also the home page written there. So who can read the language can read that's the home page of the website, and who cannot read and interprets visually can look at the home icon and understand that's the home icon. So semiotics has three different divisions. We can break down the semiotics concept of semiotics into three different aspects. One is the syntax, and the second is the semantics, and then the pragmatics. Syntax is the arrangement, how it has all the pictures are associated and structured. It can be structured, it might not be structured, it can be an association, it can be a set of some pictures which means something else, or it can be logically sequenced which means something else. So that we'll discuss. That is that comes within the syntax. So what is the formation of the pictures or icons or the images or the signs, and whether it depends on some particular set of arrangement, or it's independent of some particular set of arrangement, that comes in the syntax. So this is the hardware part, or the formation and the structural part of the communication of signs. So that is the syntax. After syntax, the next part is semantics. So semantics is the meaning part of it. So it's a language software which creates the meaning. So but it is not the way user interprets, it's the way the designers have thought about it. So it's the icons and all the possible meaning associated with that. So that part is semantics. And then we have the pragmatics. Pragmatics is the relationship between the sign with its syntax and everything, and the semantics, the meaning associated with that. And here comes the sociocultural effect, because here the user's mind is involved. So for each and every people, the pragmatics can be a little different. The way, because this is the functional part, the function and the context of the user is important, as McCoy said. So here the meaning can be diverse based on user's mind. So pragmatics is a study of the way in which signs are used and interpreted, the context in which language is used and functions of language. For example, the everyday way we look at the word and the image and their communication, that is a part of the pragmatics, and that affects the meaning, that affects even the semantics part of the of a sign. So basically how we how our icon functions and how we interpret that, that's the pragmatic part. So first part is the arrangement of the icons and everything, that is the syntactual part, and each syntactual or the formation of the design or everything, and then the meaning part of it is the semantics, and the interpretation, that is the pragmatics. So now we'll discuss, first we'll discuss the semantics, how the semantics are, what is the different aspects of semantics. Then we'll also discuss the pragmatics and the syntax part later. So in semantics we have icon, index and symbol. They're a little different. So icon is a physical resemblance of an object or concept. It can be very realistic, and it can be a map, it can be a diagram, and easily understood. So there is no hidden layer into it. For example, this is a famous painting, we must have seen that. This is a pipe, but it's a painting of a pipe. So it's also written that this is not a pipe, this is a painting of a pipe, but still this is a photograph, and this reminds us of a pipe. So so it can be as realistic as possible, or it can also be abstract, but it is easily understandable. So if you want to make an abstraction of this of a pipe, it can be a silhouette of a pipe, but still it should not be something metaphorical, something which is not a pipe but gives us a sensation of pipe. That should not be the case. It has to be represented as directly as possible. So that is the icon. Then this is the next thing is indexed, which doesn't convey the meaning directly, which gives us some sensation, and there is a cause and effect related to it. For example, we were discussing the danger sign. So it's if we look at the danger sign, it's just a skull, and there are two bones. So that is nothing to directly do with danger. So it's a skull. So if we look at the icon part of it, so that represents a skull. That doesn't represent danger. But with the red color and with the bone and with our previous association with the meaning it conveys, it represents danger. For example, if we paint a heavy cloud, it can represent rain, because that's the cause of heavy cloud is a cause of rain, and so on and so forth. For here we have an example of Munch's cream. So here, because of the color selection, because of the line quality, and because of the expression the person is given, so that is why the expression of scream is well depicted. So it's the word scream is not written, and the interpretation of scream is also very abstract. So because through the color, through the line quality, and through the brush strokes, and through the expression, if you look at the people, the persons, the painted person's expression, it almost resembles like he is horrified, and he has the similar has a lot of similarity with a scarred face. So all these things together evokes a sensation of scream that can be caused as index, which is not as direct as icon. There's another thing which is symbol, which is not directly linked as index. Like for index, it's a cause and effect relationship, but for symbol, it's a predefined symbol. For example, symbol is a learned and agreed upon code. Here we have a WWF's advertisement. Here we see there is a whale's tail, because we have already have a particular idea of whale's tail's shape. So this the two different hands, gives the formation of whale's tails. So whale's tails has a particular shape, and we had that's an agreed upon code, because we also we have that in our mind, so we all know that. So because it creates a similar formation, that's a symbol. For example, we can think about the symbol of a flight departure, flight arrival, or elevator, and even the home button. So everybody agreed upon that particular code of code or particular symbol. For example, the WWF's logo is definitely a symbol. But here the difference between index and symbol is this particular index is not agreed upon code, because it's the painter Munch's creation. So he have depicted Scream with different with color, tone, different kind of brush strokes. It can be depicted differently as well. But for symbol, it's more universal, and throughout the socio-cultural context, different people from different socio-cultural context will agree on the symbol and will understand the symbol easily. So we can conclude that symbol will be based on a symbol will not be based on socio-cultural context, and most of the people will agree on the symbol's identity, and it will be more universal. But index is more fluid, and it will be represented, and some will represent some other kind of secondary or hidden meaning meaning for it. So thank you, and next we'll discuss the later part, pragmatics and syntax.